What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video. And today I just wanted to go through a comparison between solo instruments versus ensemble instruments and which one is kind of right for your orchestration. I think it's a very common question in terms of the choosing instrumentation for your arrangement. Really, really important because it does influence the impact of your music. And I'll share with you a practical example using one of my pieces here, Love's Rapture. And yeah, we'll have a listen through and then we'll kind of dissect the decision choices there and the pros and cons of each. Before we do that, though, I want to give you access to my free workshop called the Complete Composer's Framework. So if you're a composer and you're on the journey of making incredible music, then I want to give this to you. It goes through step by step how to go from your initial idea to the polished final master. I'll share with you all the steps and little tips and tricks all the way through as well to really improve your music to get there, as well as my virtual orchestration roadmap, which is a process I follow every single time when working on my mockups. It's jam-packed full of value and I want to give it to you completely free. So if you click the first link down below in the description box, you can get access to that. Just fill in your details and I'll send you the workshop there completely free again. So enjoy. And without further ado, let's kind of get into this video in regards to solo versus ensemble. So let's talk about solo instruments first. Let me play here the A section, and then I'll play the A prime section, which is the same theme, but with a slight variation on it. And then we'll talk about the decision there for the instrument choices. Let's go. All right, let's stop there. So a very obvious difference in terms of ensemble choices or in terms of instrumentation choice between, the A and the A prime. The A, we're just using a solo viola. And then when we get into the A prime section, the violin section as a whole comes in as well. So one of the main pros of solo instruments, number one, is that it's simply more intimate and more expressive. Because a lot of the time in the orchestra, we hear ensembles, we expect a nice big sound. And so when we take them all away and only hear one instrument in its exposed context, it sounds a lot more intimate and raw, right? And it really, the light really shines down on that performer itself. And that's one of the big pros, is that you get a lot of expression and a lot of intimacy with a soloist instrument. They can really inject their all into the instrument and just make it feel really emotional in a beautiful way. It's really exposed. And that's something I really like to play around with in terms of colors. Now, the biggest con, though, is probably that it just doesn't have that much power behind it because it's not layered with other instruments as well, either of the same family or across different sections. So naturally, when you have more instruments playing the same thing, then it's going to be louder as well. It can cut through the mix a little bit better. Now, with DAWs, though, of course, you have volume, so you can always push solo instruments up a little bit more than the ensemble ones, which is, of course, what we did here in this case. But my whole intention for this first A section was to make it intimate and only use two instruments, just the viola and piano. So one more listen here. You can really hear the detail, the vibrato in the viola. It can really stand on its own, right? And it's very passionate as well. There's really nothing clogging it up. It's just supported by the piano underneath. If we compare that now with the ensemble strings, right? Obviously it's objectively not louder right now because I've balanced it so that you don't have to turn up and down like your volume controls. But if you imagine in the context of a real orchestra, if you have 16 violins playing the same theme together, that's going to be a lot louder than just one solo viola or one solo violin playing that same theme. So that's one of the biggest pros of ensembles, is that it gives you a lot more power and it makes the overall thing feel a lot bigger as well. So I would say that's the biggest difference between solo versus ensemble, is intimate and quiet versus big and loud and and expressive as well. The expression can be really a lot in both contexts, right? Like soloists and ensembles can be very passionate and very mellow as well if you need it to be, but it's just the more exposed, intimate feel of the soloist versus a more ensemble context. Everything feels bigger and more supported in that way, less fragile, if you will, you know. So that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted it to start more fragile and more intimate and then go into a bigger, expansive sort of feel. So in this A section, not only did I put it into the ensemble, but I brought in a ton of other instruments, as you can see, like all the full string section. I brought in the flutes to double the melody. I brought in the harp glissando, percussion, brass as well, tuba, you know, things like that. Whereas in the first A section, it's very, very sparse. It literally is just the solo viola and the solo piano. So if we have one more listen here, you'll see the difference. Very calm, very mellow, but it's establishing the main idea for the first time. So I didn't want to go too high, right? I didn't want to hit like a 10 energy level right off the bat. I can save that for this upcoming section with all the different instruments. You can also hear some additional strings underneath the violas and the cellos. And then here's where the transition begins. We introduce more instruments, string tremolos, bassoons, choir, and now everything is together. So the fuller ensemble allows the theme to cut through more, and everyone feels more supported as well because they're all playing with each other. I've also doubled in like the Tina Guo cello and octave underneath there to really accentuate the theme. Now, of course, when you're working in sample libraries, you can really do whatever you want. And I always encourage you to experiment, like try out different ensembles versus solos in your mockups just to see which one sounds better and more appropriate. But of course, in real life, if you're hiring real players, then budget is obviously a consideration. So you might only be able to afford a soloist. But if you can afford a full orchestra and then you want to feature a soloist, you can certainly do that too. But again, in MIDI land, you can do whatever you want. So I would encourage you to try, if you're a bit unsure about which to go with, try them out and see which one kind of gets across the message of your music the best. Again, just to quickly recap, solos tend to be a bit quieter and a bit more intimate, a bit more exposed, and therefore it may feel a bit less supported. Whereas if you have the full ensemble, like the 2D orchestra, then it feels a lot bigger and more powerful because objectively the volume will be bigger in a live context if they're playing at the exact same dynamic, solo versus ensemble, and everything just feels more supported, thicker, fuller, richer. That's kind of the idea there. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. It's a pretty simple answer, I guess, but I hope that gives you a couple of ideas and maybe eliminates a little bit of confusion when asking yourself this question. So that, in terms of mockups, is really, really fun to talk about. Mockups are so fun in general because you're literally replicating and recreating the orchestra from scratch. And it's an art in itself, and I really do enjoy it. So if you want to go from, again, that initial idea to the completed final master, you want those steps in between, then I would highly recommend you checking out my free workshop called the Complete Composer's Framework. Just click the link down below. You can get access to that right away. And again, it goes through step by step what you need to know about starting from your ideas, how to write melodies and harmonies, my preferred structures for music, how to orchestrate and arrange, my step-by-step mixing and mastering workflow, my virtual orchestration roadmap. Like all of that stuff is jam-packed in there. It's super valuable and practical, and I want you to have it completely free. So again, if you click that first link down below, just enter your details there and I'll send it over to you right away. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.